Hi, it's Sarah, my natural baby birth. I just wanted to pop in quick today and talk about that common phrase of, oh, I have good birthing hips or not. Or have you ever had someone tell you, oh, I don't think you have good birthing hips, and they kind of size up your thighs or your butt and make a judgment based on your size? Well, I'm here to put all of those claims to bed because it does not matter how big or small or wide or fat your butt or your hips seem to be or don't seem to be, because it is not based on body weight or shape or anything on the outside that matters. Now, look at me, for example. If you've seen full pictures of me, I am a skinny, petite, little. I have always weighed like 110 pounds my entire life and have nowhere near what would be called birthing hips. And you know what? I've had 3 vaginal births, completely fine, all my own, all natural, without so-called birthing hips. What really matters is the shape of your pelvis on the inside. So if you look at an x-ray, and you can check out the blog post today that's coming out this afternoon, I have a lot of pictures there you can check out. If you look at an x-ray, right, your pelvis is shaped like a triangle or a heart, and your hip bones are at the top, and your sit bones are at the bottom, and your tailbone's in the back, and your pubic bone comes around the front, right? Well, that interior hole, or if you're looking at it head on, that interior hole of your pelvis where the baby goes through, that shape is what is more interesting and what may matter to you. And you can't see that on the outside. You can't see that by just checking out a lady walking down the street. Okay? There's actually 4 different types that are most common. You may have a mix of a few. It's not, set in stone. So many have this or that. But there are 4 different kinds of shapes. And the most common one for white women is basically round. I won't worry about sharing the scientific name for it. It's basically round with a little peak at the top, kind of shaped like a little pumpkin or an apple, where it's slightly wider side to side than front to back. Most common shape. Most common vaginal births with mostly no issues. The next kind is more like a heart shape or triangular shape. So there's sharper points, and so that distance from side to side is decreased than front to back, and that is less common. Like 25% of women typically have that shape, and it's still very doable, just fine. You just have to worry about keeping yourself flexible and moving during labor and using the right positions. The next shape is really oblong, like an egg. So the distance from side to side is less than the side from front to back or top to bottom. And this one is usually, with moms, it'll take your baby longer to engage and longer to get settled in, and so your early labor can go on for a while. But then once you've fully dilated and once it's ready for them to come out, no problems, no issues. And then the 4th type of shape is really oval. So it's really, I'm trying to do this with my hands, you guys. I really need like some props to use, but it's very, very oval, and the distance from side to side is much longer than the distance from front to back of your pelvis. And this shape is much more rare. Like less than 5% of women have a really oval-like shape. And so what that means is you have to pay attention to the baby's positioning before you go into labor. And there's we could go on for days and days about the different kinds of positions of having your baby in your belly before you go into labor, and the pros and cons of each or whatever. But all I want you to worry about is if you know that you have a pelvic shape that's very oval, you want your baby in a left occipital transverse position. All that means is that, and I'm not even, see, I told you I'm short. I'm not even that tall to the camera screen. So, you have your belly. Basically, you want your baby's back on your left side, and it might be flipped depending what camera you're looking at. But picture your left side, your baby's back is on your left side. Their bum is up here by your left rib. Their feet are up here, and they're kicking you up in the right rib. Their head's down there, and you might feel their little hands tickling you down on the lower right side. That is what's called left occipital transverse position for baby. And that is best for moms that have a pelvic opening that is very oval-like. But from there, no problem. And you're thinking, okay, Sarah, well, how do I know what kind of a pelvis shape I have? How the heck am I supposed to know? I can't take an x-ray right now, right? I'm pregnant. Well, the good news is you really do not have to worry about what type of pelvic shape you have, because it's almost impossible to know unless you have a history of babies with certain presentations while they're born, and if you have, extensive series of x-rays of your pelvis from, another medical provider who knows, or you've had an extensive pelvic exam by your midwife, your OBGYN, where they actually poke and prod and feel a lot more than what you're used to. And so that's okay. The main thing that I want you to remember is that even though we have different pelvis shapes, and even though, the odds of my baby coming through this shape versus this shape is better or worse, you still can't know for sure, because you don't know exactly how big your baby's head is. You don't know exactly what positions you're going to be in. There's so many factors and variables. But the key thing to remember is that you want to do the best you can to open your pelvic inlet through the bottom of the baby's birth canal as much as possible. And you can do that with increasing your flexibility, because when you are more flexible at the bottom of your pelvis and your pelvic opening and where your hips come together, that means you are able to open up more for your baby's head to come through. If you are doing the proper exercises and the proper stretches and the proper habits every single day, you can open up that pelvic opening up to 2 centimeters more than typically just standing there. Now, isn't that great? 2 more centimeters, that's about that much space. Wouldn't you want about that much more space for your baby's head to come through? And I know that's relative, based on the camera you've got. But it can make a huge difference. So how do we do this? Okay, how do we do this? Well, I will tell you. Let's talk about a couple of different things that you can do to increase your flexibility to open up that pelvic opening as much as possible. So while you're pregnant, you want to be sitting Taylor style on the floor. And when I grew up, this was called Indian style. It's sitting on your butt on the floor and your legs are crossed, kind of like when you cross your arms, but they're on the floor. Your knees are bowed out like a butterfly, and your feet are propped up a little bit, and you're tipped forward a little bit. That's called sitting Taylor style. It is the sitting position you want to be in almost all the time as much as possible. Never cross one leg over the other. Don't do it. I know it's not very pretty to sit there with your knees kind of splayed out, but you know what? You are creating space for that baby to come out, and if you're not flexible that way, it's going to be harder and harder when you deliver. So sit Taylor style on the floor. Do your squats as much as possible. And I'm not talking about squats where you're on your toes. I'm talking about the right kind of squats that we talk about all the time, where your feet are flat on the floor and your back is straight and you are engaging your core and your thighs and your butt, and you are lowering down as low as you can possibly go. do those as much as possible, because the lower the squats, the more flexible you are, the more open you're going to be during delivery. Now, if you have to sit a lot during the day, say you have a desk job, you can sit on a yoga ball, get one of those huge yoga balls, blow it up, and you can kind of rock side to side. You can open up your legs, and your knees are up higher typically than if you were sitting in a chair, in an uncomfortable chair. It's more comfortable for one, but that movement and supporting the bottom of your pelvis being on a yoga ball really helps too. Okay. Other exercises you can do if you just like yoga or Pilates, take classes like that, do that regularly. And after any exercise, you want to do gentle stretches of your groin, like butterfly stretches where you put your feet together. And I can't even do this. I'll have to use my arms. You put your feet together, right, and you pull them in to your crotch as far as you can go, and you push your knees down as far as they can go, doing a butterfly stretch to stretch open your groin as gently as possible. You can also stretch your quads, which is the back of your thighs. Stretch your butt as much as possible. Stretch your thighs and your hip flexors. Keeping that flexibility is fantastic. And your body is pumping out lots of hormone called relaxin that's relaxing all of the connections between your muscles and bones and joints and all of that to help. So it makes it easier as well. And then just an extra tidbit, make sure you're wearing clothing that is really comfortable so that you can sit in these positions and move freely. Because if you're in, some of those maternity pants, even though they have the stretchy band around the belly, they are still super tight around your hips and your butt, and you still can't move. Just avoid them. If you ever want any better excuse to wear yoga pants all the time, do it right now. And then you can move freely, and you don't have any restriction with how you're sitting or walking and things like that. Okay? So that is why, if you have said birthing hips or not, it doesn't matter. There are teeny tiny little women like me that birth 9-10-pound babies vaginally with no problem. And then there are women with that are overweight and have big wide birthing hips, and they have tiny little babies that are like 5 or 6 pounds, and they end up having a C-section. It's not because if you have birthing hips or not. It's because of how you prepare, how you support your body, and the actions that you take during labor and delivery that help bring that baby's head through as easily as possible. Okay? So if you guys have any questions about that, there's going to be more details on the blog post today. But you can leave me a question below. If you know a mom that's getting ready for birth, feel free to share this with her and invite her along, and I will talk to you guys later.